Welcome to another edition of Broad Mind, where we explore the minds of writers, authors, and beyond. I'm your host, T.L. Rockwitz, and today's guest is Chris Gay, who is a freelance writer, voiceover artist, broadcast, and actor. He's written the paranormal theological thriller novel Ghost of a Chance, the novella Sherlock Holmes and the Final Reveal, and several humor books, including The Bachelor Cookbook, and That's the Way It Was, Give or Take, a daily dose of my radio writings. Shouldn't Ice Cold Beer Be Frozen? My 365 Random Thoughts to Improve Your Life, Not One Iota. Another round of Ice Cold Beer, my 365 More Random Thoughts to Improve Your Life, Not One Iota. He's been published nationally in Writer's Digest, and for 7 years wrote and broadcast a daily radio humor spot in Hartford. Chris has written and voiced radio commercials, authored both comedic and non-comedic freelance articles, scripts, press releases, websites, media, and technical content, done occasional radio color commentary for local sports, and acted in a couple of movies and plays. And I bring to you Chris Gay.
Hi,
Hello.
thank you, Tracy. How are you?
Very good. I want to ask you, first of all, how long has writing touched your soul? When did you start?
Since I was born. My mother was a young woman when she had me, and she was going to college, and she would bring home her textbooks, and I would read them at like 3 or 4. And not that I really understood them, but I wanted to, just wanted to read anything. And the funny thing was, sometimes she'd help me with that, and the only word I couldn't get was the. It was to her, to he, to her. Whenever I got to it, I tripped over that word. But I've been writing just about anything since, probably 6 or 7. I mean, anything that I could put to paper. And it stemmed from really a love of reading, which I'm just in a generation before all this technology came. So what do we have growing up in the 70s and 80s but books, a couple of TV stations, and music?
Yeah.
So to me, books were incredible entertainment. There were so many categories, so many genres, and I never stuck to one. So I just would read almost anything I could get to, And that, of course, for all you aspiring writers out there, that improves your vocabulary significantly.
For me, it was 3rd grade. We had log books. We always journaled our happenings or whatever, and I used to fill mine up pretty quick, as opposed to everybody else. And I just took to it. I don't know where it came from, because my grandmother used to bring me to the library all the time since I was like 6 or so. So it was like something that just was ingrained in my psyche, and I just started writing.
I think that it's like everybody has some sort of skill, whatever it is.
Yeah.
I can't change a tire. I can call AAA, but I can't. There's a lot. I'm really poor at math.
Yeah. Same here.
But some people can pick up a musical instrument and just play it.
Yeah.
And with writing, it's just a skill that you don't even think about. I just had it. I couldn't draw to save my life. I couldn't draw a stick figure. But there's a lot of things I can't do. But this is something that just kind of clicked.
Yeah.
And I think with everybody, whatever it is, if they have some sort of special skill, at some point it clicks in, and they run with it. But I think if you go back into anyone's life, you can see the beginnings of whatever it was they're really good at now, then. Yeah. So, when you started with the log books, that's a good way to get into it as any.
Yeah, well, my teacher, my teacher actually told my mom, she does really, really well with it, so just do it and don't discourage her if she tries doing it at home or whatever. So I was like,
Smart.
I don't know, it just happened. How about for high school? You just do reports and stuff?
Writing reports was no problem. Of course, watching Whaler games, they usually waited until the end of Sunday night, like around 10 o'clock. But aside from my atrocious handwriting, writing them, and if you got an assignment that you really liked, it made it that much better.
Creative writing.
Right, creative writing, and I took, with writing classes, whatever. That's like one assignment I never minded. Like a lot of other classmates would be like, oh God, I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
But I never minded anything that had to do with writing, because that's your
forte.
That's your forte. Your forte.
Yeah. That leads me to ask, since you were talking about the whalers and stuff, your passion, obviously. what made you write such subjects ranging from mystery to humor? Where does the inspiration come from?
Inspiration comes from, and I was just talking about this to a friend the other day. The two writers when I was a kid that influenced me the most were Roald Dahl, who wrote, and it was because, you know, when I was a kid, I was born a little bit after, like, you know, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, but not, so when I was really young, his books were something that I would read, you know, the young adult books when I was like 6 or 7. And then I found out he had written, before I was born, a James Bond script, You Only Live Twice. And I thought, wow, when you read a given author, any author, usually he or she sticks to the same genre or similar genres. And that's great if they're really good at that. You know, sometimes you see comedians try to branch out into drama, or dramatic actors branching out into comedy, and something doesn't always work.
Yeah.
And a lot of writers, like anything else, will stick to what they're best at, you know.
Yes.
I didn't want to do that because my mind is all over the place with stuff. You know, I have ideas for, you know, creative ideas for everything. And when I first started, you know, becoming, you know, awakening to, you know, the power of words, as dorky as that sounds, I was like, wow, this guy wrote a Bond. You know, I love, you know, I'm a guy, I love James Bond movies, love sports, all that too. But he was able to write something and sell it that millions of people watched, and then write these young adult books for people like me, you know, my age at the time, and they were completely, you know, they're totally different from each other. And the other, although people remember him mostly, almost solely for television, Andy Rooney, when he was on 60 Minutes.
Yeah.
Andy Rooney was a writer, he was a television writer, and he was a writer for most of his life. He didn't get the job at 60 Minutes until I think he was 59 or 60.
Wow.
So when I was like 7 or 8 or 9, and he wrote several books based on like humor essays on anything, from, you know, it could be a table to toothpaste to, you know, World War II.
Yeah.
But he would write, and I'm like, wow. So you know, like my humor is completely clean, or almost completely clean, as much as I can make it. And as a kid back then, I thought, wow, you don't have to stick with one thing. Even if you're, whatever it is, whether it's humor or whatever you're writing, and you can do anything. And I've got a couple other books almost ready to come out, and one's a Christmas story for all ages.
Oh.
It's the first time I've ever tried writing for all ages. But I've always loved Christmas, which I'm sure makes me unique. But yeah, that's those two. I could point back and say those two were my earliest writing. You can say mentor because you never met him, but, you know, inspiration, as you said. So.
I like to say for myself, I like to write music-related fiction, but I like drama because, like you were saying about the 3 networks that we only had, 3 or 4, maybe eventually 5, but a lot of times it was the late night drama shows, which I'm sure probably nowadays people wouldn't want their kids to watch. Taboo, you know, everything. But I got a lot about like character and storytelling, even soap operas, you know. There's always something to be said about there's humor, there's drama, there's sadness, there's, you know, just all sorts of things. So that's why I started writing my books in that fashion.
Well, so my great grandmother used to call them her stories, and she would watch stuff I would never watch if I didn't have to, like The Guiding Light or whatever. But although I wouldn't watch it, you do have to admire how fast they churn that out, because it's just a ongoing thing. I don't know much about them other than they're called soap operas because soap companies used to sponsor them in the 50s. But, you know, when you have to write on a deadline or something and you have to get that out, and there's, you know, it's not easy to do. So, and wherever you can get your inspiration from, whatever leads you to books, is a good thing.
And like you were saying, that you're going to try something completely different, like a Christmas book. I have to make a confession.
Okay.
And that is, for the first time, I actually have plans for writing a book. It was originally a script that I wrote about professional wrestling. It was a big part of my life as a kid. Believe it or not.
No, as a kid, me too. You know, The Undertaker and you know, Roddy Piper, and I haven't, not so much in recent years, but in the '80s when we were teenagers. I remember, you'd watch that when it was called WWF.
Oh yes, before the World Wildlife Federation,
Right.
World Wildlife, or whatever it is, the foundation decided to copyright or whatever, just infringement, some whatever thing that was. But yeah, it's more dramatic and everything, but there's some humor and whatnot, my usual style. But I thought I want to go out to something different than just my typical.
Well, that's a great idea, because
yeah.
different is good if you put something out there. I think Mickey Rourke made his comeback in a movie about wrestling.
The
Right?
wrestler.
That's why, I always want, ever watch it, every other show is a cop show or a lawyer show, and it's always New York or Chicago or LA. I want somebody to set a drama in Omaha, Nebraska.
Yeah.
I want some small town. I use
Totally different. Some remote.
Absolutely. I use in my novel, I said it right in Hartford, because you write what you know, and of course you want. I know Hartford doesn't always get the best reviews, but that's where you're from, and and that's. And other authors do that. But I really like when people take the norm and change it a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, one of my mom's favorite movies was Witness.
With Harrison Ford and Kelly McGillis.
So, yeah, there's something different there.
Yeah, I don't know many action films set in the Amish community.
Yeah, Amish community.
I think my mother took me to see that when I was 12 or 13.
Yeah, incredible. I gotta say, how did you come up with the title like "Shouldn't Ice Cold Beer Be Frozen?" My 365 random thoughts to improve your life, not one iota.
Well, let me tell you, that is funny, because a lot of times, and this is just the truth, women buy more books than men. That's not even debatable.
That's
and
true.
When you do a book,
That's very true.
When you do a book signing, my colors, my favorite color's always been green. So my logo and everything is green and yellow. And Ice Cold Beer, all it was, and it's a book of essentially 365 sarcastic or hopefully witty comments. And all I wanted to do, all I did was pick the shortest one for the title. So because some of them, it's a 6-word title, and most of these comments are like a sentence or two, and you can't put that on a book, a 2-sentence joke or something.
Yeah.
So I did this, and the designer of the cover of my book, she did a fantastic job, and she filmed a frosty mug of beer, and it got people to think, and it was totally unintentional.
Yeah.
It got people who were looking at it, because you can't miss the gaudy yellow color. It got people to think that it was a book about beer, and so women would come by book signs. Oh, my husband, boyfriend, cousin, uncle, brother would love this.
Yeah.
And they would, I'm like, well, okay, fine, that's fine. But I would tell them it's not about beer. But then when I did the sequel, another round of Ice Cold Beer, we essentially put a second mug of beer on the cover and reversed the dominant colors. And it's just another 365. But see, the thing is, I find a lot of, I do, like I said to you, I do clean humor. I make a point to do that, because I think using curse words or whatever in writing, or in humor at least, as a punchline isn't funny. I think it's a crutch.
Yeah.
I want you to, or hopefully I want you to walk out of the room going, oh, I got that, all right.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's right away. But I find that I'm sure I'm not the only one who thinks this, or anyone who does anything with comedy or has anything with comedy thinks this, but I think the funniest things are the truth. And, and people are so used to being lied to, and I am not a liar. I can't, it's like a weakness of mine. I wish I could. But by just saying exactly what it is, 365 random thoughts to improve your life, not one iota. Well, I suppose the iota is if you laugh, laughter is better than not laughing.
Yeah.
But really, they're not going to, do anything for you other than make you laugh. So you just put it right out there what it is.
Yeah.
And obviously the sequel is just simply another, so it's just a continuation of different jokes. I'm actually writing about halfway through a third round of Ice Cold, and it's because it takes a while. Because I'll write stuff on Facebook just to entertain my friends, and then if I think it's good enough, I'll throw it into my Word document and save it.
A round on me. That'd be nice. Yeah, there you go. There's some inspiration. Because actually, I wrote a book. It's called The Freedom to Rock, and of course, people, they think, oh, rock. Oh, there goes your favorite word. It's like, yeah. But the thing is, they think it's like now music seems to be attached to like this talent shows and whatnot, American Idol and what have you, and it's like,
Oh, the
no, it's
reality
not
television.
everything. It's more about the music industry, and people are like, really, you wrote something like that? One of the worst things I hate is being called like chick lit. No. But I'm sure that people probably associate your books with like man cave type of.
Yeah, and again,
stuff.
you see, like the like I said, it's at Book Science. I find I've always sold, like we've done the Biggie together. In years past, I've done the Biggie, and women they think they're whoever in their life, whatever male is in their life would like that. The guy would never buy it for himself.
Yeah.
But then when she gives it to him, or sometimes you'll hear good feedback,
Yeah.
and it's like, yeah.
Like, oh, yeah.
Or sometimes they'll read half of the things standing right next to you and start laughing and then put it down.
Yeah.
But that was just something to do, actually, because I have a very short attention span. Like when I was writing Ghost of a Chance, which is a supernatural theological crime thriller, it was, you read the same thing in your editing too, which takes more time than writing. You're reading the same stuff over and over and over again. To break it up, I wrote the Bachelor Cookbook, which is a humor. It's a cookbook, but not one that anyone would ever use if they were looking to eat healthy. Stuff that I'd eaten, like I say, since I've been divorced, but even when I was married, I still ate junk food. But it's just like Dorito casserole and all that. So
Comfort food.
Yeah, you because they're little. It's designed in the style of a cookbook, but it's mostly just I like to find different avenues to get humor out there, and in between editing Ghost of a Chance, I wrote that book, piece by piece by piece.
So you wouldn't call yourself like Mr. Paula Deen?
No, but I do love butter.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a weakness
At the
too.
Food Network, I watch that mostly at the gym, which makes no sense at all. I don't know why they don't block that station, but I always, whatever they make, no matter how good it looks, they always ruin it. Like, here's a great cheeseburger, and they throw feta on it, or they throw broccoli into something. Like, no, just leave it as it is.
It's a Guy Fieri thing. Yeah. I think that's what it is. I like what you said about the humor and everything. I'm thinking of the late great Groucho Marx.
Oh, yeah.
He said that like about the clean humor and dirty humor should just belong with the guys in a room by themselves instead of.
Oh yeah,
among
I
the
mean that's
ladies.
just like, you have your, you swear in your real life or whatever. Everybody does, most everybody. Maybe not the Amish, but I find that the punchline needs to be funny without it, because I don't find, like, sometimes you go to comedy clubs, and I've been looking into doing stand-up comedy myself, but everything is bleep, bleep, bleep. Like, that's not really funny, Just saying that word isn't funny. We're
Yeah.
all adults here. We've heard it a million times.
Yeah.
Make something, create a joke that's worth. And you've seen some of my Facebook posts. Can you think of one that had any sort of? I mean, I know some of them.
No.
Some of them are a little, maybe come up against the line. But
Risque.
yeah, risque. Well, I'm Chris Gay with risque,
Yeah.
But I really
you go.
depend on the joke itself more than anything else. I think that's a cop out.
Yeah.
So anyway.
With your humor and your stuff like that, have you ever considered writing like a calendar, those 365-day desktop calendars since
Not only that I
365?
considered that, I actually, when I first wrote this book, I thought about, I have great ideas.
Yes, you do.
I don't know how to market very well. I have, like I said, I
That's the
have
problem
a
with
weakness of, I'm relatively computer. I'm the guy that will click something a million times, and hopefully that'll unstick the computer, and it's just, I thought about that. I thought about coasters. I thought about like having these things put on like disposable coasters and trying to sell them to bars.
Yeah.
So you'd put your beer down on one, and actually for ice cold beer that'd been perfect. But I've tried, like, not with the serious books, but I've thought about trying to almost as a joke, but like have real companies sponsor the dedication. Like this book is dedicated to Budweiser because they paid me to say it, or stuff like that. There's a whole bunch of stuff that I don't have the acumen business wise to pull off.
Yeah.
The ideas come, but how to do it.
Yeah.
You know.
Make sure you
Another
have them written down so you can think of them for at a later time. Believe me, I have people that say, "Oh, you should think of that. You should make sure you keep that in mind."
Oh, it's easy to say.
Oh, yeah. But it's
Easy to
another thing
say.
to market. Like, even for myself, being an author, it's one thing to write, it's another thing to market. I hate trying to market myself.
See, I don't hate that at all
can't
because I'm very personable with people. I
I
just
can do it to other people, but I can't do it myself.
well, I just don't. You know, like I said, I don't have the like I know some people who are really, really great business people, businessmen and women, who are very successful, very smart. And if I had even like 1/8 of what they had, you know, I'd be doing this interview on NBC or something. You know, you know, and it's just it's frustrating that you can't put all that together.
Yeah.
But like you said, you keep note of it. You never forget what you want to do. It's always in the back of your mind because you never know who you're going to meet or who you're going to come across or what have you. So you should have everything. The calendar, like you said, is you know, one for each day. I've thought of that. It's just difficult. Like I said, marketing. You know,
Yeah.
I don't mind it. I don't mind getting in front of cameras or behind microphones
Yeah.
or anything like that, or meeting people or shaking hands or doing book signings. I just wish I knew how to better create avenues. Look at Charles Schultz. How much money did he make off licensing Peanuts characters
Yeah.
and the MetLife and
Yeah.
the books and the coffee mug? And I, growing up, I loved the Charlie Brown strip and
Oh,
all
yeah.
the shows.
Yeah.
Because again, he was a very clean writer too.
Yeah.
And all the strips were his own. He never accepted other ideas. But he was a marketing genius.
Yeah.
You know, conversely to like say Bill Watterson, who wrote Calvin and Hobbes and
Yeah.
would never license anything. You know,
Right.
he had it for 10 years and then hung up his pen and
Yeah.
then went about his life. So there's different things for different people, but
Yeah.
maybe someday.
Yeah. I remember an interview way back, early 90s. I think I was still in high school. There was an interview with Elton John, and he actually said that, like, even with musicians, you have to have an ego. It's required of people in music, art, writing, whatever that needs an audience. I tend to think of it as confidence, but you know, if you really want to be bold and think of it that way, but you do have to have some part ego or confidence, whatever way you want to call it.
Absolutely, or even desire to prove yourself. If you know,
Yeah,
like it's, you know, you hear like comedians a lot of times they come from difficult backgrounds, and
Yeah.
you know, there are some people who come from backgrounds that end up being like bully types. And comedians, I think, or people who write humor, I think, or at least I can speak for myself, your outlet is, instead of all that, is to try to make people laugh. I get such a kick out of anyone who laughs or at something I write. I feel so good that I made somebody
Yeah.
else smile, even if it's just for a minute. And when you get positive feedback, you feel like you've accomplished something, even though it's small. But as far as like the ego thing, yes, you definitely have to have it, because you have to have. Imagine the audacity that you would have to think that you were so good at something that people would pay you to do it.
Yeah.
And if you don't even think about that, you know, like, no, I'm going to do it. I'm going to write it, and people are going to buy it, and you know, and they're going to laugh at it, and that's fine. You have to have that. If you don't, if you are, listen, you can have introverted writers, like we discussed off camera. You can have introverted writers, but they don't want to get out there and do that. So maybe they don't have the ego. They just have the desire to create, but you can't. It's hard to be that way.
Yeah.
The Catcher in the Rye guy there. What am I thinking of?
J.D. Salinger.
Yeah, J.D. Salinger, right? Who writes one book in his whole life, or two books, or whatever,
Yeah.
and you know, lives in Vermont or New Hampshire, wherever he was, and never pops up. You can't do that now, because
Right.
it's so easy for people, even untalented people, to get stuff out there. You're in a sea of well, let's just say literature, even though, you know, whatever passes for that. A lot of people don't edit anymore, don't know what grammar means. But you've got to shout above. You got to get above those waves of people and stand out. So you can't do that sitting, you know, behind the keyboard and just hoping people are going to buy your stuff. You know,
Yeah.
got to. You could write the greatest novel in the world, but if nobody knows it exists, what good is it? You know.
Yeah. And the question is, do we really write for ourselves?
You know, like, there's professional athletes, and they play hockey or football or baseball, and then somewhere in their 30s or 40s they have to retire. But golfers don't. Golfers play until they're 90 or until they can't walk anymore.
Arnold Palmer.
Right. And I know it's like you ask yourself why these ridiculously famous authors with all the wealth in the world still keep churning out books. And I think, and I'm not anywhere near their level of success. Stephen King,
60 some odd books.
right? You think Stephen King needs to have someone buy him lunch, but he still keeps writing this stuff. Why would you do that? He's 70 years old. No. I think that no matter what, whether I ever become successful or whether I'm just, somebody who entertains people, a lesser or fewer number of people than these guys and women do, I'd still keep writing because I love to do it and I can do it. It's like like I said, I could put an easel up here and a canvas and I would paint what looks like, I don't know, Jackson Pollock. Whatever I was trying to write or paint would look like Jackson Pollock then, and that's what it would be like.
Yeah.
But for writing, I just love it. And as an author yourself, you have to want to write for yourself because otherwise, if you don't really put all the effort into it. And to me, if somebody's going to buy my work, then they deserve every ounce of my creativity.
Yeah. I just want to ask you one more question, and that is, how do you sell your books?
Oh, well, you do. Well, some book like the Sherlock Holmes novella, I have because of the name. Like I've sold, even people in Japan buy this book. The ebooks. I don't like ebooks personally, but authors have to have them because you'll sell more that way.
Yeah. That
name, and it's got a very unique twist. So that one, you really don't have to do much, but you include it with everything else, everything. Book signings. I don't just mean in a conventional. I've done book signing. I did one in Borders, and then of course they went bankrupt. So hopefully that wasn't because of my book signing. I've done them in supermarkets. I've done them in my old gym. You just got to get out there. And today with social media, I have Facebook pages for all of my books and for myself as well, public Facebook pages. Yeah. To not, Twitter obviously, to not use that is really not wise.
Yeah.
Because now you have this way, to get your stuff out there and clickable links right to your, like, I have an online bookstore on my website, but these are also available on Amazon.com. So anything you can do, anything at your disposal, and all that's free.
Yeah.
You don't have to pay to go on Twitter or Facebook, or usually you shouldn't be paying to have a book signing.
Yeah.
I've done them at flea markets. So you name the place, I've probably done a book signing there. You always have them, unless you are Stephen King, authors always have their books in their car.
Yeah.
I've had impromptu book signings in restaurants during storms when no one could leave, and they're like, oh, you write? What do you write? Well, I have these. So that sort of thing.
We're running out of time, but do you have a website?
ChrisJGay.com.
Okay. And I would like to thank my guest, Chris Gay.
Thank you, Tracy.
You're an absolute delight.
Thank you very much.
sir.
I appreciate being on your show.
This has been Broad Mind. I am T.L. Rockwitz, and until then.